everyone, my name is Nicolò Sbuelz and I am the rehearsal pianist and coach for this production of Gianni Schicchi at Opera Theater St. Louis. This is my first time with the company and it's really an honor to be here and be making music together again in the same room after such a difficult year. On top of that, isn't that great that we are going back to the opera with a comedy? And you know, in the opera repertoire, especially Italian opera from the 19th and 20th century, it's hard to find a light-hearted comedy. To be fair, Gianni Schicchi is part of a trittico, 3 operas that Puccini conceived all together as part of a one-night show, where the 3 operas had to have a complete different character. So we start with Tabarro, that's a murder, very gloomy, a very industrial setting, and it's a very heavy story. And then we go to Suor Angelica, where all these nuns, and it's very mystical, and it's very elevated, and as we probably know, well, Suor Angelica commits suicide at the end. And then we finally get to Gianni Schicchi. Even when it was premiered at the Met in New York City, December 14th, 1918, so about like 102 years ago, Gianni Schicchi was absolutely the true success of the night. Puccini wasn't there, because we need to remember that 1918 was kind of a difficult year for the history of the world, especially the Western and European world. Well, the war had just ended. And you need to remember that for Italy, the end of 1917 was really hard. There was a battle, the Battle of Caporetto, near the border, where the whole Italian army was defeated. And as a matter of fact, Caporetto is not in Italy nowadays. Puccini's family had some troubles. His son Antonio attempted suicide. And plus, and this is kind of, well, ironic, although it's probably not the best word. Well, the Spanish flu was around and killed around 84 people in Torre del Lago, where Puccini was dwelling. So it was a very difficult year for Puccini as well. But somehow we get the sense that with Gianni Schicchi, he really wanted to let go all the anxieties and the difficulties of life with a sincere laugh, which is exactly what I tried to play now, which was those were the first 6-7 measures of the opera, where really after Tabarro and Suor Angelica and all this heavy stuff, we get to finally, we can all laugh together. And about all the flaws of human beings and all our greediness, but also love, that even at the end of Gianni Schicchi, love always wins. Gianni Schicchi is based on a character that's mentioned by Dante in the Divine Comedy. Dante only mentions him in where all the cheaters and impersonators are living in the afterlife. Gioacchino Forzano, who's the librettist of Gianni Schicchi, was also a playwright. So he kind of took the inspiration from Dante and built this incredible story. This is very important to notice because, like, for example, last night we were rehearsing, of course, and the director asked the singers to just speak, and walk the geography of the staging, and I was noticing how the text actually is incredibly well written, and as a play itself. And Puccini, he's great. He was a great dramaturg. He always knew what was the right time for drama to happen with the music. The first page, quote unquote, of the opera introduces us to the whole musical world of this one-act opera. You probably noticed from my playing this theme that becomes basically the main engine of the whole piece. Well, what are the people doing on stage at the beginning? We have this big Italian family. And you know, approaching the reading of a will, you know, families tend to become bigger and bigger. And all these people are mourning and grieving the death of Vuoso Donati. They're all relatives of some sort, nephews, aunt, brother-in-law. And everyone is pretending to be so sad for the loss. And think about like this big Italian family mourning and maybe lamenting in something like that, you know. And they actually do that. It's in the score. And well, that's where Puccini's theme comes from. Povero Vuoso. Vuoso is the name of of the poor guy who just died. Vuoso Donati. And Vuoso is very wealthy, as well as the whole family. And they probably belong to the elite in Florence. So Vuoso has three things that are the desire of all the relatives. The house, okay, fair. The sawmills, okay, probably, you know, around Dante's time, yeah, fair. And the mule. So apparently the mules were something really, really good to invest on in 1299. This mule is the most expensive in Tuscany. So everyone wants the mule. What happens is that the relatives start discussing, like, where's the will? Has anybody seen the will? And what happens is that Betto, this drunk of the family, who's, you know, he's very old and probably still a bachelor, and, you know, he likes to drink a little more than others. And it's like, you know, walking on the street the other day, I heard that people, you know, are talking about us, and the gossip, the rumors are that Vuoso just gave the whole inheritance to the friars. So, of course, it's very nice to give money in charity, but the relatives are not happy with that. But Simone is old, he's wise, he was once mayor of Fucecchio. Simone says, has anybody seen the will? Because if a notary has the will, we are done. There's nothing we can do. But if nobody has seen the will yet, maybe there's something we can do. And that's where I start to freak out, because the next 3 pages are really hard to play, but it's the search of the will. Rinuccio is the son of Zita. Zita is this old woman, a cousin of Vuoso Donati. Her nephew, Rinuccio, finds the will and says, I'm gonna let you read the will if you let me marry Lauretta. And that's the first time we hear about Lauretta. Lauretta is the daughter of Gianni Schicchi. And Rinuccio, of course, wants to marry Lauretta, but who's Gianni Schicchi? Gianni Schicchi is not a member of the elite. He's no one. He's a new rich. He's a rogue. He's, you know, is not someone good to be relative with. So Zita says no, especially since Lauretta has no dowry. But Rinuccio now has the will, and somehow gives in. They read the will, and alas, the house, the sawmills, and the mule go to the friars. And this is the second big theme of the opera. which is always the reed of the will. There's another theme that I'm going to introduce now. When I was thinking about when to introduce the theme, I was wondering what would be the best time, because it's something that comes up all the time in the opera. What is this? This is probably a wink. This is Puccini being ironic and telling us that something is happening. And that's exactly what happens when we hear the will. Surprise! No money, no mule. Sorry, no mule for you guys. So anyway, of course I can't tell you every single step of the story. We get Gianni Schicchi in, and Gianni Schicchi has an idea. But he still needs something else to decide to engage with the relatives to fix the quote-unquote problem. Who convinces Gianni Schicchi? Well, the most famous musical number of the opera that I'm sure all of you already know. O mio babbino caro, which is the aria, probably also the only real musical number that can be played alone from the opera. This is the aria of Lauretta. It is funny because when it's performed in Italian abroad, sometimes people think, oh, it's so beautiful. It sounds like a love story, a love song. It's like a love aria. It's like, oh my God, I love you so much. And actually, it is not. This is Lauretta playing her daughter charm to convince Gianni Schicchi to help the family so that maybe Rinuccio can marry her. So, well, and Gianni Schicchi, at the end of the day, he's a sweet father and accepts to help the family. How? Well, he decides, since no one knows that Waso died, to replace him. He dresses the same way. He fakes his voice. He decides to call a notary again to nullify the previous will and to dictate a new will. The family is happy. Of course, there are a few very hard pages to play when the family discusses like who's gonna get what. And since they can't really agree on the mule, the house, and the sawmills, well, they say, oh, Gianni Schicchi knows what to do. And of course, they're like, oh, if you give me the mule, I'll do this for you, and blah, 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 okay, yeah. And Simone says, I'm the oldest, I was mayor at Fucecchio, I deserve this. But Gianni Schicchi is smarter than them all. Before calling the notary and starts the whole process, Gianni Schicchi reminds the relatives that there's a law in Florence. Well, this law prohibits, obviously for obvious reasons, to impersonate someone. And of course, to dictate legal documents as someone else. And whomever is caught doing that, he's gonna get his fingers cut and the exile. And thus, this gives me the opportunity to tell you that the whole opera is a love letter to Florence. In several occasions, we have some motives that are very from the Florentine tradition of stornelli, which is a kind of folk song. That's Rinuccio, when Rinuccio sings at the beginning and tells everybody that, you know, he'd like to have Gianni Schicchi doing that. So this is the theme of Rinuccio, for example, and this is very, it's a Florentine melody. And also Gianni Schicchi, he'll say, you don't want to get exiled, and sing another melody on the same, from the same source. And of course the relatives are like, no, we don't want that, it's fine, okay. The notary comes in. And we start. Of course, the cash is shared by the relatives, everybody's happy, good. A little money for the funeral. Yeah, because Bozo is such a modest man, humble, very humble. For the friars, again, very little money, because Bozo, Gianni Schicchi, explains that when you know you get too much of a donation for charity, well, that's people are gonna say that it's stolen money, so you shouldn't do that. Oh, and the notary is like, oh my God, you're so right, John. Oh my God, Bozo, such a great man. And then we get to the house, the sawmills, and the mule. And well, Gianni Schicchi is gonna say, as Bozo, I'm gonna give the mule, the most expensive mule in Tuscany, to Gianni Schicchi. This is Gianni Schicchi's theme. And of course, the relatives can't do anything because he reminds them that they're gonna get their fingers cut and they're gonna say goodbye to Florence. So basically, Gianni Schicchi gets the best of the inheritance, but for a good reason, because Loretta gets a Dore to marry Rinuccio. And you know, that's the ending of Gianni Schicchi is one of the most iconic endings in opera, where Gianni Schicchi breaks the fourth wall and talks to the audience and says, yes, what I did was not great, but if tonight you got a good laugh, well, it means I did my job well. I hope you enjoyed this opera preview, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all at the opera, finally in person here at Opera Theater St. Louis. Thank you.